I'm a big fan of sci-fi and fantasy, and I never actually got around to reading Stephen King's The Dark Tower series, but I've always heard good things. And based on the Dark Tower movie, I am not exactly sure where people are getting those good things from. I don't really know what went wrong from the book translation to the screen, but something definitely went horribly awry because it all felt very hollow and wooden. And even Matthew McConaughey and Idris Elba couldn't save it. So Matthew McConaughey is some sort of evil wizard, I guess, or a sorcerer, and they call him the Man in Black. And then Idris Elba is a gunslinger. And there was this one-off line about how his guns are forged from Excalibur, and then they just never went back to that. And I was like, are we just going to plant this idea and not address it? This is the most bizarro thing I've ever heard. I guess they're trying to set up a sequel, but based on how this one went, I do not think we're getting one. So I was very confused, but I guess the premise is there's a dark tower at the center of our universe, and our universe includes like other planets and kind of parallel worlds, and the tower is protecting the universe from demons and evil. And if this sounds absurd, it came across absurd. And so I guess Matthew McConaughey wants to destroy it just because he likes chaos and evil. And the Dark Tower books are technically aimed at young adults. I know a lot of adults are fans. I'm sure a lot of like younger readers are fans. But of course, there had to be a teen protagonist then, and he was just so And I feel bad because you're a teen, you're still working on your acting skills, but I do not think this kid could carry this movie. I'm just not a huge fan. And so, honestly, I didn't care a ton about what happened. This sounds terrible, but I was like, they're probably going to save the world. It'll be fine at the end. Like, the battles during are really kind of meh. And it's too bad because I really wanted to read the books, and now I just like don't feel interested because I'm like, if this is what they drew from it, and there's so much bureaucracy in Hollywood that I'm sure there were a lot of challenges in adapting it. But if this is what they landed on, like, I was not impressed. And there's like a couple highlights when Idris Elba comes to our world from the world of the Dark Tower, I guess. And there's jokes about like him being a fish out of water in New York and all this stuff. And at one point I was like, are we promoting gun violence? Because he's a gunslinger and the kid's like, you're going to love Earth and America where guns abound. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this movie promoting this. It's absolutely the truth, but I still didn't know how I felt about it. So I think The Dark Tower is one of those movies that should have stayed a book. So I'm only going to give it 1.5 out of 5. It's a skipper for real.
So this week I also have an Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power.
So they know what's up with the naming stuff. So Al Gore is back 10 years later with a follow-up to An Inconvenient Truth, and I don't think you can call it a fun documentary, right? Because it's about climate change and global warming, and you want to talk about like the real end of the world. This is about the end of our world when it's like a fact we are facing. So this is much scarier than the Dark Tower in that sense. Is it like the most? It's not super fun, obviously, because it's not supposed to be. But I really do think everyone should see it. It's much more anecdotal than the An Inconvenient Truth. So that one was just basically his presentation, and he's been giving his presentation all over the country and I think the world for the last however many years, and teaching other people how to give it so they can kind of spread that information. And I'm not going to lie, did I cry during this movie? Yes, I did. Because a lot of the film centers around Al Gore's personal involvement in getting the Paris Climate Accord signed. And they go to Paris, and if you remember, like during that time, there was actually like a terror attack, and it was really scary, and they were there during it, and it was just really emotional. And then you see how much effort he put in personally, and like how many connections he had to help make this thing happen. And keep in mind, I saw An Inconvenient Sequel before the U.S. pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. So, and now, I'm sure if I saw it, I would just be like, waterworks. Because it's so frustrating to see how much he cares about this and how important a cause it is and how we actually were making progress, and then to see that set back. So as a movie and a documentary, like there's issues with the storytelling a little bit, and it feels a little, not fluffy sometimes, but I do feel like they got bogged down in trying to tell like more of a story than the first one. It's like less presentation, which is weird, but I'm going to give it 3.6, but I really don't think the rating should matter. I still think people should see it. But it was really interesting to see, but it's just like so frustrating to think about. But I do think the end message is kind of hope. So people need to like keep being conscious and keep being aware. So I think the film was like a good reminder of that we now, especially as like citizens and individuals, the onus is now going to be on us to help combat climate change, because clearly we are being abandoned by, the powers that be. So I definitely think it's worth checking out.